Be warned that the video that you are about to watch contains information about what happens in the Owl House episode for the future, the second to last episode of the series, which unfortunately leaked online a few weeks before its official release. If you do not want to know what happens in this episode, do not watch further in this video. I'm serious. And I apologize if the video popped up on your feed without your consent. For the rest of us, let's talk about this very beautiful, mysterious, strange episode where Camilla is forced to navigate the fact that the hundreds of eyeballs pointing at her are perfectly normal, but the whimsical, if slightly unnerving, starry landscape created by the Collector is not normal. This episode, I believe, though, will probably be most known for how it gives Luz her Palisman. This has been a mystery, a riddle that the show has been playing with for a long time. And the resolution, when it comes, is quite satisfying. Her Palisman is a Snakeshifter, as in, it's an animal that has a normal form that looks somewhat like a snake, but it is a shapeshifter. It can take many different forms. And that fits who Luz is. And that thematic appropriateness justifies all of the build-up to the Palisman. If it were just a normal random element of her character design, it would not be worth this much build-up. But the Snakeshifter string bean fits her. Luz has always been the kind of person who does not like these very strict and rigid boundaries. This is rather to her detriment at some points in her life, where it's better if she does keep to these boundaries. Such as how, when she's a child, back on Earth, she just sets a whole group of snakes on kids. That's probably not the best idea. There are boundaries that matter. Or when she reaches the Boiling Isles and she does not know how to act, and she is so enamored by all the wonders and intrigues that she encounters in this world that she acts rather brazenly and rather short-sightedly. Some boundaries are good, and I believe as she's growing up, she's learned that. But it's important for her not to become too cynical, and that, I believe, is what Season 3 has emphasized. Luz, at the end of Season 2, is rather melancholic. She is in a state of existential crisis. She knows that she still loves the Boiling Isles, but she also knows that all her adventures and expeditions have led to her and those around her being hurt. And so she becomes reticent to embrace her organic desires and ideals, and instead she tries to be a little too safe. She commits to returning to Earth when the events of the show are over, even after Camilla first tells her that she really shouldn't. Luz becomes so skeptical that she loses her enthusiasm. She loses her drive to seek out wonder and beauty and new connections. And this is a bleak loss for Luz as a character. And For the Future emphasizes that this imaginative part of Luz is important. Perhaps she should not allow it to supersede all other elements of her personality, but she shouldn't lose sight of the kind of person she was at the start of the show. She shouldn't lose sight of that curiosity. She made a lot of positive changes in this world explicitly because of that curiosity. When I first saw the Snakeshifter, I immediately thought of Luce's rebellion against the Coven system. Now, obviously, the Coven system is corrupt and a hierarchy of control and authority perpetuated by Belos. But even putting that aside, the show is quite emphatic that allowing people to only practice one kind of magic is unnecessarily limiting. Luce is completely against such rigid restrictions, and she rebels against them. And ultimately, the restrictions are lifted, and the student body of Hexide becomes more free and more satisfied, it seems, as a result. The Snakeshifter is thematically important for Luce because it emblematizes her creative side, her willingness to reinvent herself, to have all these different sides and aspects of herself that she's willing to explore and willing to indulge in and not shut down to force herself to fit inside these rigid boundaries. And the revelation of her Palisman helps reinvigorate her. True, Camilla's words do help as well, and I do not believe the revelation of the Palisman itself, without talking to Camilla, would be enough to allay a lot of Luce's fears. But the moment when Luce finally learns what her Palisman is, that is also the moment when she allows herself to unburden herself of all these fears and anxieties. It is the moment wherein she allows herself to recapture that passion, that fire of creativity and wonder and adventure. She starts to genuinely enjoy herself again for the first time in too long, to recapture that lost magic. And this revelation, this freedom from malaise, fits into her relationship with Camilla. She learns a lot about her mother in this episode that she didn't know before. Now, she was not as antagonistic toward her mother ever as some of the fans short-sightedly were, but she was still a child who did not understand the fullness of her mom, who her mom really is. And this episode changes that to some extent, and it does it in a way that is not in the manner of a mere exposition dump. It's not garish or ostentatious. It's woven very organically and cohesively into the narrative. Luce learns that her mother is a lot like her, that she was also a nerd. A nerd, it seems, of this universe's equivalent of Star Trek. We know this to some extent from the last episode, but Luce understandably was more focused on her own laments and angst than aspects of her mother's personality that she didn't quite know. Here, she's forced to realize that making mistakes is inevitable. It's a simple lesson, but it's not presented in a platitudinous way. Yes, there are negative consequences to making these bad decisions. Camilla does not pretend that there wasn't for her, or that there aren't these kinds of consequences for Luce. Camilla's stories are amusing and rather wry. Part of me would love to see these in flashbacks, and the more we get to know about Camilla, the more I kind of want to see a whole spin-off about her. But we see that Camilla did a lot of things in her past that she was not proud of, such as taking part in an MLM scheme for 3 years of her life, or even deciding to move to Gravesfield. because she believed it would be beneficial to her husband, and then, of course, he died. And what she regrets most is trying to contain Luz, trying to encourage her to fit within these societally conditioned boundaries. She believed it was better for Luz, but she understands that it was counterproductive and that it placed a wall between them. Camilla did not necessarily do this on her own accord. There's a lot of societal pressure, and also there are genuine reasons why Luz should, at the start of the show, be encouraged to at least channel her weirdness into more productive enterprises and avenues, which she ends up doing. But this is a beautiful scene between the two of them when they finally have the opportunity to think about the mistakes they've made and how not allowing those mistakes to overwhelm you is important to being able to hold on to a cohesive sense of self. Sartre talks about the folly of trying to erect this artificial sense of the self, a sense of the self that's stable, that's reliable, that's orderly, that's socially intelligible. This image of the self that you wear like a uniform and present to the world as who you are. Doing this is inevitable to an extent. There's always going to be a disconnect between how others see you and the real, wild, amorphous essence of yourself. But what's wrong for Sartre is taking this costume, this image, as a reflection of your true self and trying to make yourself fit into that image. Freud says something similar about the desire to try and mold oneself to fit societally approved standards in civilization and its discontents. Freud is not anti-repression, and he is kind of a Hobbesian. But he ultimately believes that trying to make one's own values and ideals and passions fit what society wants is counterproductive. It will inevitably fail because these societal standards are artificial and don't quite match the fullness of the wild mercurial selves that we all have, and that when we try to force ourselves to fully meet these standards, we, in our failure, start to hate ourselves. It doesn't make us more moral citizens or people, it just deepens our self-loathing. Luz comes to a similar sort of revelation by the end of this episode. It's not quite as complicated as that, but the emotional weight is there. She understands that if she tries to construct this sense of self that is purely negative, purely about not messing up, not putting others in danger, not doing anything that's risky or against the norm, then she will not be happy and she will not be able to help herself or others. There is not and there will never be a single solitary image of the self that she will be able to completely mold all her passions and interests to. She is always in the process of changing, as we all are. She doesn't exactly know what she wants. She doesn't have this perfect, ideal, static image sketched out for herself that she wants to try to attain. And that is good, the show suggests, because such an image is innately unrealistic. We change and our circumstances change, and these static images that don't quite fit the amorphous river of our circumstances, it will lead to us not fully being satisfied. So Luz accepts the world of constant change, constant unpredictability, constant transience, And it gives her a sense of purpose and meaning that she has lacked. This is exactly what Balos does not have. He, as we see in this episode, is quite literally haunted by the ghost of his dead brother. He cannot change or evolve. He remains fixed to this static, corrosive image of what he wants that has been shaped by centuries of hatred and loathing. Luz is able to move beyond such static and rigid images. She re-embraces her curiosity, her whimsy, her sense of discovery, and she is for the better because of this. And her Palisman, the Snakeshifter, represents the positive side of this willingness of Luz to go on new adventures, try new things, really experiment with who she is and what she really wants for herself. So thank you all for watching. If you liked what you saw today, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Donate to my Patreon if you can. The episode is quite imaginative. It's quite bombastic and inventive. And I can't wait to see what they do for the final episode. So anyway, tune in soon for my next analysis. It will be coming soon. Promise you that. Thank you all again. Adios, comrades.